Okay. So we're here with Caroline Dean, and she agreed to do a live video testimonial of her experience, life before, the quantum change process, 1 and 2, and then the full-on breakthrough paired with the program and life after. So I love how you explain everything. Feel free to go. Where were you? Yeah, I feel like I should just let you talk because you're always fantastic at just explaining what unfolds. Where were you before? Where were you before?
Pre doing really any of this stuff with you, I guess maybe between like our very first QCP, that was what, like sometime July, August of 2023.
Yeah.
Um, I was still in college, probably I think close to finishing like my last year, starting my last year of college, post COVID and everything. And I was walking out of a relationship that I'd been in for a couple of years and that I just tried really hard to hold on to, and it was not working. And I'd picked up a lot of guilt and shame and resentment and anger and, trauma had been coming out. And I'd kind of gotten to a point where it was like I thought I could identify what all of my problems were because, spending enough time in therapy, I was like, okay, maybe this is where this is showing up. Maybe this is how this is showing up. But I was so stuck because it was like I could see it, but I couldn't do anything about it. Like I'd done as much what I thought internal work on myself, during COVID and lockdown, taking, half of the hours of a normal college student being part-time. What like I thought that I'd given it all a lot of time and energy and effort and work, and still nothing was getting better. Like I was pouring energy and time into trying to heal, right? Everything you'd see on social media, trying to fit and do all the trends. And I just like, I felt like I'd gotten to my wits end of like things that I could do on my own. It wasn't working anymore. And I was just in total survival mode, fight or flight all the time, freeze mode all the time, just like really it felt incapable of doing anything that was actually good for me or that I wanted to do. Like I had the ideas of the things that I wanted to do and I had a list of things that I knew would be good for me, but there was a disconnect between seeing them and knowing them and actually being able to do something about it. I was just so stuck.
Was it like a ton? I hear a lot of people mention it's like so much awareness without the actual ability to make a change. Like what?
Yes, and it's God, that place is so frustrating because like me personally, I've been in therapy in and out since I was in 7th grade. Thankfully, I've loved it. It's given me a lot of information and knowledge and perspective and, safe places to kind of process things as life unfolded, starting from the age of like 11 or 12. Um, but there was so much awareness and it's like I couldn't do anything about it. So it was like a being locked in a cage with, being able to see all of your shortcomings and all of the places where you're projecting your trauma and being able to see, all of these limiting beliefs and limiting programming and just not being able to do anything about it. And that's so disheartening, to have spent so much time thinking that you're healing when it's and awareness is good, but when it's just gaining awareness and then you can't change anything, you feel so trapped. And I think that's really where I felt so trapped and defeated. I felt so defeated not being able to do anything about it.
Oh, is that when you went into, I don't think I've asked you this question before. Is that when you went into FST? Because you're a body worker of sorts.
I
Uh,
am.
is
Yeah,
that is that what got you into that? And were
I
you
think
doing somatic
so.
things as well?
I think so. I went into college thinking that athletic training was kind of my field and I loved it, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted. And then COVID hit and it kind of gave me some time to reflect and have perspective. And I feel like that was a really hard time of life for everyone. And it squeezed up and out, a lot of just uncomfortable stuff. And so I kind of stumbled upon the fascia stretch work that I do because I was eager to, be working with people again and get back into it. And all of those certifications were out in Arizona. And so I studied and taken the test and traveled out there, 3 times in total. But yeah, early on, I was learning about, the certification and gaining this knowledge. And I didn't feel at home in my body. Like it was almost hard
Mm.
to fully do the work without being at home in my own body. So that's been a big change since we've done this too. Like ownership and trust and accountability and comfortableness in my vessel.
Question, did you, and then I want to jump to where you are now and kind of like fill the gap, because some people may have watched the video where, your little where you were versus where you are now. Did you do any, there's a lot of talk about the tools, somatic tools, and um, I know you've done CBT, DBT, EMDR, and then there's other somatic tools as well. And a lot of people are like, okay, what's what does what, like, where do I start? Were you doing any of the somatic tools as well? Yeah, like, please speak to that
I've
really
I've
quickly.
kind of I've kind of done a little bit of everything. When I think back to like my early therapy days, a lot of it was just cognitive behavioral therapy, talk therapy, right? Kind of having a safe place to expand and think about what things were. But yeah, I've done EMDR. I was a big fan of tapping. I did a lot of the tapping to just kind of recenter and start learning about what grounding meant, really regulating that nervous system. Luckily from school, I studied the nervous system a lot, and the way they all kind of pieced together, I think it was perfect timing before, leading up to doing the stuff with you. But yeah, I'd tap. I'm a big fan of breath work.
Mhm.
Big fan of being outside. So I would try to do a lot of those things. But again, I had such a disconnect from, my mind, body, spirit connection, because there were so many, and I know this now after working with you, there were so many times in my life where, I would abandon myself in those places, right? And just didn't have the full, mind, body, spirit fully working in alignment with each other. And man, being somebody that's so sensitive to those things and to energy, that was wreaking havoc on my day-to-day life. My hobbies, my passions, my career, my goals, my relationships, like being out of whack and unaligned, and having those 3 different tiers that you talk about, trying to do different things. It was like they were working against each other.
Okay, like the character player programmer, all in
Yes.
conflict. Gosh. So I kind of want your input on this before we talk about the tangibles of what changed for you quickly. But from my perspective, and I'm not a medical doctor, I'm a doctor of chiropractic, did all the neurology, all the research, all the somatic stuff as well. So I love hearing this coming from you fresh. But I feel like there's a category of maintenance tools and a category of completely change and move the dial at the neurological level tools. And I feel like, oh, my opinion is 90 to 95% of what's taught is in the maintenance category. And even the things that move the dial that are available are like snail pace. But that's my opinion. So,
Man, that's a really good way to put it. I don't think I've ever thought about it like that. But yeah, maintenance versus like actively changing things. And that's so true. I felt like, I'd just been compiling my toolbox of regulation techniques and, grounding techniques and trying to, breathe through panic attacks and trying to, in highly emotional activated moments, trying to regulate, but that didn't actually change anything. They're great tools. I use them all day, every day, all the time for emotional regulation, nervous system, all the things. But as for like actually changing the programming and the neurology, and then what changes the actions is the stuff that you do. And when we first started this, like I didn't know that what changes occurred in working with you in just, 6 to 9 months were possible, right? Because I'd been working with all of these other tools for years. I mean, shit, probably over a decade when I think about it. And it wasn't changing anything. I wasn't getting any of the actual major adjustments, chiropractic joke in there, that I
Right,
wanted.
love it.
And that was, but that's where the defeat came from, right? I was pouring so much energy. I was like, I'm doing the things that I'm seeing on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, and I'm going to therapy every week and doing the EMDR. Like, why am I still so stuck? Why can't I still actually get myself to do anything that's going to make it better? It was so, it was exhausting and defeating.
Oh, that was, I hate that that's the majority of people's experience and that was your experience. And also, I love that I feel like you probably can most accurately categorize almost because you're very proactive. You want to actually change. And so this might be a great time because so like I know you were nervous when we started working together. You didn't really quite know. You were like, I've done all these things for this long. If it was going to change, wouldn't it change by now? We did a quantum change process. And then a year later, you went ahead and just did a full on breakthrough. And there was a lot of life things that came together. But in 4 weeks, you like doubled your income. And what else? You got 6 hours back of your day.
Like frozen hours that I was just like unfunctioning, like could not function for the life of me. Yeah, I'd lose 5 to 6 hours a day, where I would have loved to take my dogs on walks or go to the pool or paint or write or, be in music or connect with people or go to the grocery store or whatever. Like I, yeah, in about 4 weeks, there were massive, massive changes that happened to the point where like it almost scared me. Like we were almost moving. I think I told you at one point, it was like if EMDR was the snail pace crawling, this stuff felt like lightning speed to the point where it was like almost a little bit overwhelming at first. Like I didn't know what to do with all of the good, right? Like there was finally so much good that I was not used to. So it took some adjusting. And what's been so nice since the breakthrough with you is like all of those, really big good things, they'll create more things that you've got to work through. So being able to work with you one on one when things are going so good, but shit inevitably hits the fan, I can call or text you and be like, what does this mean? Why is this happening? What do I do? And then you're right there to kind of help navigate and help me implement, those new strategies and tools that we've been building.
That's so, so, so good. Yeah, because it was like, yeah, and I don't want to paint the picture that this stuff is just super easy because it's literally rewriting the program that was made from 0 to 7. Like, and you went through the amygdala program as well that just got a major update. And what was my question here? So, like, everything we changed compared to where you were versus where you are now, because the full breakthrough was only like 6 weeks. I know it felt like longer. And most people
Hmm.
are like, I can see it on their faces when I talk to them. They're like, 6 weeks, like, what is that? What? And so now what is it like? Because moments still pop up, right? But is it like what does it feel like now versus what it used to? Because remember that one archaic strategy where you would actually, uh, what was it?
Like fully self-sabotage by being like the worst possible situation is going to
Oh, yeah.
happen. And that was a protection technique, right? Like I thought that if I could prepare for the absolute worst case scenario, that then, when I would be disappointed or when something bad would happen, like it wouldn't hurt as much because I was prepared. But, that's
Disappointment.
bullshit.
That was
Yeah.
it. It was like you would disappoint yourself before anyone else could. That was, I couldn't find the word. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then I remember when that came up and you were like, what? So, okay, EMDR is like the gold standard, right? Like I keep hearing it's the gold standard, which totally, totally get that. And I don't know if this analogy is accurate, but I've had people ask me the difference. I'm like, okay, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a licensed therapist, doctor of chiropractic with my own, like, I have my own understanding. I've lived with this stuff. But to me, even going through this myself, it was like taking one piece of the pizza topping off at a time, like one situation at a time with EMDR versus like wiping the pizza in the floor and starting over in one go.
Yes. Yeah, and look, when I started EMDR, it was really helpful for where I was at the moment. There was so much that I was overwhelmed about that I just didn't even know where to start. And so, EMDR taking memory by memory was helpful when I was in that stage, but that's exactly what it's like. It's like, yeah, taking one topping off of the pizza or, one little piece of a salad out of the bowl at a time. And it takes a long time. And I was to the point where I was so ready for just massive transformation, massive change. I spent so much time and effort doing these little things without massive change. And that's what I needed, right? I needed
Mhm.
complete reprogramming, like rip my consciousness up and out and scrub it clean and put it back in. Like that's what I knew I needed. And EMDR was great for what it was, but this is so much more potent and intense and profound.
Oh, thank you. I love that example. I'm curious because I'm a big believer in everything works, but everything's not right for everyone right now.
Mm.
So, from your perspective, when was the EMDR right for you, and when was it time for you to like pull the levers hard and fast?
Um, in my line of work, it's very, very individualized, specific to each person. I'm also a big believer in everything works, right? Like there is truth in everything if you look at it through a certain lens. Right. So I think that's kind of what matters is what lens you're looking through. And EMDR was really, really helpful for me when I was coming out of, immediately out of this relationship that was not good for me. And I was still learning that I was living in survival mode. I wasn't sure, what all of that information was. And I needed somewhere to start. I needed to dip my toe back in the water. I hadn't been in therapy when I went to start EMDR in like 2.5 years, which was probably my longest stint not working with somebody. So it was great, getting warmed back up to what it meant to be working with somebody, talking about the things that hurt and were causing disruptions in my life. Kind of, picking the pieces off of a pizza. It was great, but I picked enough pieces off that I was like, more, more. I need more. I need this, I need this more than just a memory a week. I need more than, let me know if anything comes up in your subconscious between this week and next week. Like the 6 weeks that I was working with you, it was, I think what you called it like an intensive stacking the amygdala reset with that breakthrough. I mean, I had homework every day. We reset my daily non-negotiables in the way that I was showing up for myself. And it was intense. I mean, every day of those 6 weeks, it felt like there was something coming up. That was an opportunity for me to look at it and be like, where is this coming from? What role is this playing in my life? How do I reprogram this so that it doesn't continue to wreak havoc? But it was like lightning fast every day. And so this is not for the faint of heart. Like it's if you're not ready to fully dive all the way into it and like kind of put yourself through a little bit of your own personal hell to get to the easy, then, EMDR is great for that. Take your time, do it little by little, don't overwhelm yourself. That's great. This kind of stuff is get through the really, really hard, ugly, nasty, gross shit that you don't want to pay attention to get to the easy. And I'd kind of always been the kind of person I'm like, oh, I'll take my time. I was cautious. I overthink everything. So, yeah, when you were telling me about this, I was like, I don't know. I've tried everything else. What if this is just like everything else? It was a big investment. Like being only 24, it's probably one of the biggest investments I've made in myself to do this work. And I was so scared. But I would, anybody who would rather like do the really, really hard shit fast to get things better, that's what this is for.
So good, so good. How long do you think it would have taken you to get to this position if you kept on the route you were?
I mean, is years too far out there? I just,
Decades?
yeah,
I mean,
I,
there's some people who I ran circles for 20 years.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
definitely think it's possible because again, with, with the just picking piece by piece, you can ignore a lot of the programming, the limiting belief, these relational issues that we learned from 0 to 7 and the what's safe and what's not safe and how we're supposed to function. EMDR doesn't address any of that. It addresses, and I think a memory,
Mhm.
a bad memory, and then you try to kind of reprocess and then you wrap that memory all up pretty with a bow and that memory is fine, but it doesn't get to those deep root causes of what's causing our experiences of all of these moments. And I think that's been the biggest thing with this is that it we'll address 600 memories when we address one program or limiting belief, and
Mhm.
that's so powerful.
Oh gosh, yes. The intervention work, I forgot to mention that in between your tasks, it was like squeezing up everything. And then from my perspective, we neurologically wipe it clean and then
Yeah.
clean it all up and put it back quickly. Um,
Yeah.
so remember the few times like while the program is being rewritten in real time, it's like watching the confusion and the what's happening.
The amount of times can I cuss in this? Is that
Of
a oh,
course, of
I was
course.
gonna the amount of times that we were going through that, those sessions through that 6 to 8 week intensive, I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, actually, Dr. Caroline, what's going on right now? What's happening? Like, why do I feel this way? Why is this coming up? There were a lot of times where, thank God, you hold your ground with me because I'd be like, no, of course not. No, I don't do that. And you're like, hmm. Like you can pick and pull and see the things, that those defense mechanisms or those protection strategies or whatever, when they try to come up because the amygdala's like, whoa, I don't want to be healthy. I don't want to fix the thing that, hurts because it's kept me safe for so long. You really, really help with that too. But yeah, there's a ton of moments like that in this work.
Oh my gosh. Can you like wrap your brain around it was technically only 6 sessions.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. Because it was an everyday thing. Like, the intervention work and the way that starting this work shows up in your everyday life, like something's going to come up and out every single day. But what changed was perspective for me because it went from, God, every day I suffer and every day I'm frozen and every day I think about the things that I want to do that would be good for me, but I can't fucking do them and I don't know why. And I traded those days for days where there were new opportunities, sometimes multiple times a day, to reflect and look and be like, gosh, where can I take this? Where is this coming from? What needs love here that I didn't know? And it's beautiful. It intense and powerful, but beautiful.
So good. One thing that popped up into my mind was the needs list was huge. Like the fact that there was written, and this is in the WhatsApp experience too, but the fact that it was written non-punishment movement versus enjoyable movement, and that opened up a whole thing.
Oh yeah. And the fact that like when you first asked me, like you gave me the needs categories and I sat with them and I was like, I don't have a fucking clue. I don't know what any of my needs are. And how have I made it to 24 and not actually known what any of my needs were. And then in learning how to articulate those and pinpoint those, and yeah, the difference in vernacular between non punishment movement, I've struggled a lot with feeling like I had to move my body to meet a certain goal. And it felt like punishment versus doing things that felt good to my body, to my vessel, to my mind, to my soul. So much changed.
So good. I had another question in there. Oh, I'm almost afraid to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it because I know what you're going to say. How long do you feel like it would have taken you to double your income without doing any of this? Like, or do you think it would have happened?
Shit, I don't probably, I'd say at least twice as long, like minimum twice as long as it took with you. Because again,
Wait,
I
it
was
happened in 4 weeks. So 8 weeks or like,
at a minimum, right? Yeah, at a minimum. And it was the kind of thing I was in my last year semester of college, and I guess I was in my last semester of college, and I was kind of just starting a new job opportunity, doing the same things, but
hold on, let me rewind. So without knowing your needs, without setting boundaries that came natural, without, you could have done it in 8 weeks.
probably not. No.
I was like, I think it's just so natural now that you're just like, now your goals are crazy.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
you couldn't even remember the problems it's like every week, the previous week problem that had been around for decades is just like, I don't even remember what the problem was.
Weird. Yeah. Sorry, my dog's chewing on a bone on my table.
No worries
Uh,
at all. No worries at all.
yeah. No, you're right. That's so funny that you say that. My perspective has shifted so much. In the time when I was, what, that must have been back
Because you were afraid to take
early.
opportunities at the
Oh
time.
yeah. Oh yeah. I was afraid to meet new clients. I was afraid to deal with connective tissue disorders or injuries or inflammation that I wasn't previously familiar with. I was scared to share my story. I was scared because I didn't know, even with all of my qualifications, I didn't know if I was good enough to be doing the work that I was doing with other people. There was so much stuffed inside of me that was like, you can't do shit, you're not good enough, all the time. I think, early on, one of the things we talked about was that it felt like there was a bully inside of my own head, like all the time. And it was so loud. Like the sound of the bully in my head, which sounded like me, right? The bully in my head sounded like me, was louder than, my inspiration or the things that I wanted to do or whatnot. So, yeah, if I go back and put myself in the position that I was before we did all of this, there's no way that I could have accumulated that level of clientele, that confidence, the time that it takes to double my clients, the, self-trust that it took to double my clients, the showing up for myself every day so that I could then go show up for my clients. Yeah, there's no way I could have done that at that point had we not done everything that we did.
Hmm. Oh gosh, yeah. So it's like almost, there is a quantum component, which it's kind of hard to like go back and linearly
Right?
track
Like I've jumped. I'm
everything.
not, I'm
Yeah.
on a different timeline.
You
So it
just
was
like jumped a completely different timeline. It's like, how could we calculate that?
right, because here I am, and I'm about to not start over, but I'm about to start over again. I'm moving. I'm about to try to find new work again for the first time. And again, this was what, 6, 8 months ago? The difference in 6 and 8 months, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to meet new clients. I can't wait to,
Six, 6 months ago.
6 months ago. Yeah,
Six
six
months
months
ago.
ago, I was terrified, right? I was terrified to take on new clients. I was terrified to talk about the work. I was terrified to learn things that I didn't know in a moment where I was at work. And now here I am 6 months later, and I'm like, let's do it. Let's see what's next. Where are my new clients going to come from? What are they going to look like? How am I going to get to show up? What am I going to get to learn? how am I going to make this work in the best way that it can work for me? How am I going to create a career opportunity that benefits everything that I need in my life so that I can then go out and benefit and help everybody else?
That's so cool.
Massive transformation, Dr. Carol, massive.
Totally different human, totally different human. I kind of wish we could have a video of you prior, but it doesn't even matter because you're in a totally different place. Um, what was your experience after the quantum change process? Because that was you dipping your toe in, but that is one of the one-offs I do like to do if people aren't ready for massive, massive transformation.
That quantum change process, the first one that I ever did with you, I don't remember, it was what, like 3.5 hours long. And
Mhm.
some of the pieces that's part of that process, um, man, like there were times it felt like I was either looking into a stranger's eyes when looking into my own eyes, or it felt like I wasn't familiar with the body that I was in, or it felt like the timeline and the space in which I was taking up was wrong. Like there was so much, out of alignment, so much that was really, really painful and hard to address at first. And then you go through that process and God, it feels like rocks that I'd been carrying around in my backpack for as long as I could remember. Like I got to take some of the rocks out. Like it felt physically lighter in my body. It started letting me, connect deeper and feel a little bit more at home and get a little bit more curious about the things that were going on in my mind. And it was that first quantum change process with you was like scraping off the first layer of like just settlement that had built on top of, this container that I had stuffed everything in. And then we took that first layer off and it was things were able to kind of start coming up and out. There was room for movement, where I had just sealed everything. After that first QCP, there was room for movement and things started to flow. And I'm confident that that first quantum change process quantum change process with you is what led me to be ready to take this massive leap, into, this amygdala reset and this breakthrough and all the things we've done since.
So cool. I think you had said that like a physical pressure and weight had lifted off your chest and you didn't wake up with all of the emotions that you didn't realize you woke up with.
Yeah. No, like my eyesight felt clearer. My brain felt less foggy. My chest felt less like there was an elephant sitting on top of it. I could breathe a little bit deeper. I could move a little bit freer. And I'm a big believer, that mind body spirit connection. When we clear things out of the mind, the body responds for sure. So I think I definitely recognized the more physical changes from the QCP the first time. And then I don't know, a few months after the QCP, I was like, there's stuff coming up in me that I've never addressed before. Like I'm curious. I wonder what I can do with this now that I have some movement and some flow after that QCP.
Really good. I had what is your when you started the full breakthrough, what was your expectation versus what you hoped for versus what actually happened?
Okay, let me think. When we started, I think I was hoping I was hoping that I would feel something. I was hoping that I would, be able to learn how to maybe start taking action, how to maybe learn the steps to like get off the couch when I was in freeze mode and, you know, go to the bathroom when my body told me I needed to go to the bathroom, or eat a meal when my stomach told me that it was hungry, or, walk my dogs when I knew they needed to go on a walk. Like I was hoping that maybe just little pieces of those things would get better. And I think right at the beginning, we set a goal of being able to identify some of my needs, right? Just to actually be able to understand like what my needs were and what that looked like. and how to start showing up for those. I think that was the start. And my God, afterwards, I mean, I know more needs now about myself than I ever have. I have, clear daily non-negotiables in ways that like I will show up for myself every single day. That's not to say I'm perfect. I'm still, ADHD, maybe a little bit ADHD, and I fail. Like there are days where I'm still not perfect, but to know, every day, like these are the things that I do for myself. Um, this way of functioning, like I feel like I got function back. Being able to like who I am, get out of bed because I want to get out of bed in the morning, be able to enjoy my days, be able to do the things that I like to do, like going for a swim or painting or dancing or whatever. I mean, it's been life changing what just like my day to day life has been like before versus after.
Oh, this is gonna be a silly question. Did you feel a difference? Because you were hoping to feel something.
I think I feel like I'm, I don't want
Or
to
was
say
it
fine.
different? Are you
Yeah,
just
I was so different. Yeah, like things that didn't make sense before kind of make sense now, and I have a trust in myself that I never had before. And then not that I don't still give myself time to rest, but in those moments where I would have frozen, I can be like, oh man, all right, I'm hungry. I'm gonna go eat. Or yeah, it's time. We're gonna go, I'm gonna go walk the dogs. Or, I've got 2 hours to kill. Am I gonna sit here on the couch and not do anything? Or am I gonna go spend 30, 45 minutes just doodling and painting because it's gonna bring me joy? Like the things that were so hard to do, like the things that felt like it took every ounce of my energy to do before are so much easier now. Like that it flows from me instead of feeling like I have to force it out of me.
oh, so good. So would you say relationships improved, energy improved, income went up, confidence went up, trust went up?
All of the above.
Wow. Wow. So I'm guessing it exceeded your expectations because we talked about all this and how it was all connected.
Oh, yeah, by a long shot. By a long shot. Because again, I think I had learned to be skeptical. I think I'd learned, out of self protection and self preservation. I'm like, shit, I don't want to spend that much money on something that I don't have evidence is going to work. I've done therapy before and here I am, still stuck, still spiraling, still frozen, still, hurting so much, still feeling so completely isolated and alone in that hurt and in those struggles. And honestly, there was a part of it beforehand where like it was embarrassing. Like I had embarrassment and shame about the fact that it was hard for me to do things. Like, get up and brush my teeth every morning and walk my dogs and make breakfast, or that it was really really hard to, go to work and function and go to school and do things the right way and come home and do normal functional things at home. Like I held so much embarrassment and shame about those things because I felt so unfunctional. I felt truly internally like such an unfunctional member of society, of my work environment, of my school environment, in my relationships. Holy shit, when you feel defective and unfunctional, the havoc it will wreak on relationships is insane. Oh my God, it's insane. And I didn't even know all of that back then. Like in 6 months, I've gained all of this perspective and knowledge and the tools and strategies to actually change it. And to look back, like it breaks my heart for the Caroline I was 6 months ago because she was so stuck and had no idea how to get out. And so Lord, if anyone has been feeling like that and wants to feel better, like not to say that you're magic, but this feels a little bit like magic. mixed with a whole lot of like grit and determination and, determination.
Oh gosh, so good, so good. And some people may be thinking, okay, I thought it was 6 weeks. She's talking 6 months. You had the fear of going backwards, right? Like after you had the massive change, you're like, holy crap, I'm different. My whole life's different. I'm terrified it's gonna go back. Not uncommon.
Holy shit, that was real and that was big. Like we finished that 6 weeks. And what was so nice about that 6 weeks is it was like I reported to you, right? Like you were like my accountability partner in meeting those non-negotiables. And then when something would inevitably come up that just rocked my world, what do we call it? Hitting our shit with the amygdala, just like fully, I would hit it and I would want it to all crumble. Yeah, when we got through the end of that 6 weeks, I was terrified because as was my pattern, I would do something and then commit to it. And then when I would inevitably misstep, when I would inevitably, fail or not show up for myself consistently or whatever, it would blow up. I would quit. I was like, there's no point in trying because if I can't do it perfect, what's the point in doing it at all? And that was still lingering at the end of those 6 weeks, right? And I was so scared that it wasn't gonna carry over, that, when we stopped doing the every single day check-ins, that I was just gonna go back and it was gonna, be a waste of 6 weeks. And while I did stumble, because that is what I do, I'm a stumbler. I stumbled, and then each time I stumbled, it was like, might as well try again. And then I'd be consistent for a little bit, and then I'd make a mistake, and I'd be like, man, what is this mistake trying to teach me right now? And I'd sit with it and I'd see the mistake and I'd offer myself some love and grace and accountability all at the same time. And I'd try again. And I think that's been one of the most massive transformations for me is the sense of, oh man, I can be so imperfectly human and still choose to show up for myself. Knowing that I'm going to misstep again, knowing that I'm going to not be perfect again, but it's the deciding that you're worth starting over and it's not starting over, but doing it again, showing up for yourself again, choosing to do it again. I mean, I wish that I could say that that's the person that I've always been. I think that's the person that I've always wanted to be, but that's never the person that I've been. I've never been the person that's like, oh man, I fucked up, but that's okay because it taught me something and I'm going to start again knowing I'm going to fuck up again. That's not who I am. That's not who I was. That's who I'm becoming, but that's not who I was. And I could tell other people that all day long. I could tell other people forever. It's okay to be imperfect. You just have to I could never do it for myself. And I'm finally in the place where I'm like, the things that I try to tell other people, like I can actually show up for myself that way.
Oh, so good. I don't know why I want to ask this towards the tail end, but I think a lot of women may deal with this secretly. So like the hair thing, do you remember how much space in your brain that would take daily?
Oh, wow. Well, and that's on the topic of energy expenditure. The amount of things that I realized, in those 6 weeks and then over the last 6 months doing this work with you is how much energy I would waste on things that didn't even really fucking matter to begin with. Like my hair routine my whole life. And it came from generational trauma and it came from programming and it came from limiting beliefs. But, my hair's always been a little bit straight and a little bit curly and all the time poofy, right? Like it never in my life have I fully been able to tame it, even with heat, and I've carried that for so long. And this was the stupidest shit this summer. Okay, the backstory, right? We're talking about pleasurable movements for the body, right? Not punishable, but like what I can do with my body that felt good. I love being in the water. right? And my apartment complex had a nice pool. And so this summer, Dr. Caroline was like, okay, get in the pool every day, 10 minutes. Do it. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great, except for the fact that 10 minutes of pool time equals 2 hours of worrying about my hair time. I don't want to wash my hair every day. I don't want to have to deal with, the chlorine or saltwater hair and then it drying out and then having to style. Like, I don't want to do it. So, my thought process was literally, I'm going to not do something that I love to do for 10 minutes every day because of what it's going to do to my hair, because of the routine that why does the routine matter? Like, why was I so attached to my hair that it was going to take away something beautiful that brought me so much joy every day? That was crazy. And so being able to fully unpack that and then really just say, fuck the hair, fuck the routine, which what that was saying, fuck what other people think about my hair, fuck what I think other people think about my hair, and let myself do something that truly brought me so much joy and peace every day, which in turn then brought trust because I was choosing something that felt good for me over something that I was going to worry about what other people were thinking about. Like, it was like somebody, took a blindfold off of my eyes for the first time and showed me, your hair is not your identity. Your hair is not the first thing that somebody sees about you. And you having joyous, peaceful moments is so much more important than worrying about what your hair looks like.
Mm. That was, I feel like that might be a big one for a lot of women. So thank you. That was, and I could relate to the hair. Like, we got you a hair
Yeah.
routine. So I was like, I know what
Yeah.
you're talking
I
about.
mean, look, you can see right now, like it's air dried out of the shower, but it's just like
Looks
kinky.
great.
Like it's not good. But I haven't used heat on my hair in, months. I guess I styled it once or twice, since then. But I used to put heat on my hair every day. I used to worry about what my hair looked like every day. And at this point, I'm like, man, I'll throw it up in a clippy or I'll put it in a cute little braid or whatever, And honestly, my hair's gotten healthier. My relationship with my appearance has changed so much because it's more, how have I shown up and offered myself love today versus what do I look like today? And again, with that whole mind body spirit connection, like I believe that in loving myself and showing up for myself, in the ways that feel good and beautiful, makes me feel more beautiful in my appearance. Whether anything's physically changed or not, the relationship to my appearance has changed.
It's so good. It's wild to think how many things were uprooted so quickly, just attached to
I mean,
everything.
it's like you like reached inside my brain and just like ripped a bunch of stuff and we're like, that's gotta go. And then you like, poured fertilizer and good soil and high quality water. And then it's just like the new stuff started to bloom.
I love that. I love that.
Not to say
Oh,
that there aren't still weeds to pick. I'm for sure the weeds still grow in this subconscious. Don't get me wrong. She's deep. She's deep. We'll be doing this work forever. But I mean, it's incredible. Yeah. The transformation and how quickly it happened. That's not to say that it felt like it was happening all very fast. The work that we've done the last 6 months, like it's been, I don't want to say a full-time job because a lot of people look at full-time jobs as, burdensome. This was not burdensome, but it was a lot of time and it was a lot of energy and it was a lot of effort and it was a lot of choosing myself over and over and over, which I was not familiar with before we did this. But God, to be at a place now where I can humbly and happily say, I am the biggest priority in my own life. And that makes me such a better daughter, sister, partner, friend, colleague, therapist. Like, putting myself first for the first time in my life, and actually understanding for the first time in my life that putting myself first is a gift to everyone else. Like, it's life changing.
Mic drop. Oh, that was so good. You have any last words for anyone? So I'm like, oh, that was beautiful. That
um, if you're scared, be scared. Like, fully embrace the terrifyingness that is choosing to dive so deep into your subconscious and the generational trauma and the limiting beliefs and the negative programming and all the things. Like, be terrified, because it's going to be probably one of the most powerful things that you ever do in your life. But mm, love the journey while you do it.
mm, so good, so good. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And thank you all for watching. Let me see if I can stop it. Oh gosh.